For my next trick, I'm going to shove this giant GPU into this tiny mini PC, at least electrically. That is the Beelink dedicated graphics docking station. This thing is 700 watts? This has a... Okay, let's unbox. Let's see what we're getting ourselves into. So the idea here is this, literally. Look, fits like a glove. It's snug, got my dual 2.5 gig LAN, and now I've got an X16 slot, which has got a lot of room for activities. And you get the nice mechanical retention bracket, so the graphics card is not going to go anywhere when you've got it physically mounted. Now if you look very carefully at the power stuff on this, it says up to 7 amps at 100 volts, so you figure like 6.5 amps for 120 volts power input. I mean, that's 700 watts, right? But we know our Meteor Lake system, it's a 100 watt system. Well, not so fast there. The way this is designed, it actually was going to use 2 power plugs. The dock does not supply power to the mini PC. So at the rear, we've got the regular power connector, which is the internal power supply on our Beelink system that we saw before previously in the review. If you didn't see the review of this specific Beelink system, you have to check this out because this dock doesn't work with just any system. It may work with future Beelink systems. That would be a heck of an upgrade path because the dock may actually outlive the machine that you've got plugged into it. But for now, 2 power supplies, one powering the machine itself and one for the GPU. That means that the power supply budget here of up to 7 amps goes entirely to your GPU. Theoretically, that might be enough. Well, you could run a 4090 in the 450, 550 watt power envelope, but the power connectors is only the 2 8-pin power connectors. 2 8-pin power connectors is a problem for the NVIDIA style connectors. Now, if these 8-pin power connectors were the pigtail style, where it's one 8-pin connector out into 2, then theoretically you could run that on a 4090. Maybe I should give that a try. But for now, we're going to take a look at a 6950 XT first from XFX, because I'm curious, does this platform bottleneck? Do we actually get the full 6950 XT from our Meteor Lake CPU? Keep in mind that the Meteor Lake CPUs, they're designed for mobile, but this thing has got something going for it, and that is that it's not in a mobile package. It can use as much power as it wants. There's actually quite a good cooling solution in our Beelink system here. Once again, using my handy LTT screwdriver. If only I had the precision LTT screwdriver, which would be more precise with these tiny screws, lttstore.com. They're not paying me to do that. I'm just doing it for the lulz. Now, if we're going to add a wireless card, I would need to add this little PCB adapter thingy on the inside of the dock. It's just 4 screws to take it apart from the bottom, and then I would be able to add my Wi-Fi M.2 adapter on this board and get this board actually mechanically attached to our enclosure. I'm not going to do that, I don't need wireless, but now at this point you basically have a desktop computer. I mean, this is a pretty cool little LAN party machine as well. I could do some 3D printed accessories, that sort of stuff, but for now, let's just do some gaming benchmarks. How much does it bottleneck? I mean, this is basically a mobile CPU, it's not a desktop CPU. Let's take a look. Alright, so good news on the benchmarking front. Our 6950 XT basically not bottleneck, but keep in mind this platform is limited to 8 Gen 4 lanes. It might be an X16 physical looking connector with even some extra wires beyond that, but really this is an 8-lane platform, so the very fastest GPU doesn't make sense here anyway. The RX 7900 XT is about the highest end GPU I think you'd want to pair with this platform. I can also report that our Tough Gaming RTX 4080 does work, but you will have to make a special cable if you want the RTX 4080 to run at its maximum speed. So this is dual 8-pin to the special NVIDIA connector with the little sense pens to be like, no, everything is fine. You totally can draw 500 watts from the little dock thingy. The little dock thingy that could be a subtitle for this, because the little dock, you could definitely hear it squealing in agony, or maybe that was the graphics card. I wouldn't call it coil whine exactly because it was just barely audible, but something in that same sort of vein, whereas our 6950 XT and the 7900 XT, which actually uses less power in real world and practice, held up really well on this platform. So yeah, if it could be called an oversight, about the only wrinkle here is the dual 8-pin connectors. One of these should have had a pigtail connector to let you use up to 3 8-pin, or some proviso for dealing with the NVIDIA style mini connector. Maybe they wanted to have you use your own adapter. But even if you're going to use your own adapter, have it going from 2, 3, or 4 8-pin to something into the GPU tells the GPU something different in terms of the available wattage, and the GPU will run appropriately, but maybe not as fast as it could. Another wrinkle that I ran into in the benchmarks is that with this Meteor Lake, I mean, this is a Core Ultra 9 185H. This is basically the top-end Meteor Lake SKU. 6 performance cores. There's not enough performance cores for Windows to keep it straight in terms of gaming workloads. So sometimes you could run into some gaming anomalies where Windows was kind of scheduling things a little weird. But mostly the gaming experience here is pretty solid. So if you start with the Beelink system and you think about upgrading, you do have an upgrade path to a dedicated GPU, and this platform does look cool as heck. In terms of money or cost savings or something like that, if you were going to do something like this, you probably would be better off getting an older generation hardware. I mean, yeah, you might end up running an older generation CPU. Maybe the single core clock speeds or the single core performance overall is not quite as high. Maybe, I mean, maybe not, because this is a mobile CPU. It just depends. It just depends on the pricing and what the other options are in your market. But pairing this platform with a last generation GPU that you get on a fire sale, this can be a really awesome solution for something that actually can game, but is unique and sort of small and kind of a lot of fun. You could also just, get a couple of docks and lug your machine back and forth, but keep in mind that that connector is probably not rated for thousands of insertions. So putting this thing together and leaving it together probably makes sense to just leave it together and run with it. But color me a little bit surprised that Meteor Lake holds up this well with its performance cores. It basically performs like a desktop, maybe somewhere between 11th and 12th generation desktop, somewhere around the lower end of the Alder Lake generation, but is actually a mobile CPU, at least when we're talking about gaming workloads. That is a little surprising to see that come out in the benchmarked results. So overall, it's an interesting platform, interesting dock, and the dual power supply thing is sort of fun and different. And I did try other contraptions, other PCIe contraptions. I don't think anybody at Intel could have possibly ever tested the option ROMs on an LSI card, but they apparently dotted enough I's and crossed enough T's that it actually did work on this platform, so you could see the drives in the EFI. It's pretty awesome. 100 gig Mellanox 5, yes, that works. Mellanox Connect X4, it worked in Linux, but the EFI did not seem to load correctly for the Connect X4, but the Connect X5 was okay. Meteor Lake quirks, I don't know. So for off-label uses, there may be some interesting options for off-label uses. On One of this Level 1, this has been a quick look at Beelink's docking solution across a couple of GPUs. If you want to see me test something specific, let's chat in the Level 1 forums. I'm signing out, and I'll see you there.